a little bit about stereoscopy in games and 3D vision. So I handed out those 3D glasses, and as I was saying before, feel free to use them for this presentation, and then I'd definitely like to have them back unless you're going to do some development for anaglyphic red cyan stereoscopic vision, in which case you can keep them, but you have to promise to do something with them. So what we're looking at right now are some design slices from the visual development of the game Super Hypercube, Golan mentioned earlier. And it's the game I'll talk most about today, but I also want to show you some other things leading up to this. So this is my art game collective, Kokoromi. We founded in 2006. There's 4 of us, as you see. And our intention is to look at how games, making games, experimental interfaces, and games as art. The members are Damien DeFidi, he's a developer and composer, and me, you've probably heard many things about me so far. Cindy Paremba, she's a game studies researcher and designer and game curator. And Phil Fish, who's a designer fairly well known nowadays for a game that he has about to come out called Fez. You probably may have heard of it if you're into indie games. And that's the 4 of us. So what I want to talk about is an event we have called Gamma, specifically one of the Gammas. We started Gamma as a series of curated game challenges. Each Gamma is around a unifying theme. And for instance, the first Gamma 01 was called Audio Feed, and it was sort of the reason that Gamma started at all. It was taking a line in from the DJ and feeding that into all the games in the exhibition, but they had to actually generate gameplay, so they're not just making interesting visual effects, but what can you do as with a live audio stream as data for gameplay. Gamma 2 was Gamma 256. So Gamma 256 was in response to the sort of excitement over high definition television. We're actually kind of contrarian, and we like to sort of question whether all of these things that are getting hyped are important or interesting. And so for Gamma 256, it was mandatory that your game was fitting in a less than 256 pixel square, and ideally much smaller than that, and also different aspect ratios, so just getting away from 4:3 or other standard screen dimensions. And the smallest game we had in that one was actually an 8x8 pixel square game, which is pretty amazing. So the one after that was Gamma 3D, which you see here. And if you're wearing your glasses, you can probably see that it is Gamma 3D. This was in 2008, and we had Gamma 3D in response to the hype at the time about 3D movies, and television was like right on the horizon. And again, we were questioning, well, why is it important? Why should we buy this new device that costs so much money? And does it actually add anything to the experience, especially for games, because it was being very much hyped at game developers as something that we should start working on and doing. And our response to that was to go, well, how can we see whether it matters? Let's just go as low-tech as possible and make some games for anaglyphic stereoscopy. So which is the red cyan glasses you see. And of course that means it's much more accessible. See how we were just questioning whether this was really important and how could we do that? Well, we made the game challenge to develop an anaglyphic game and make the 3D matter. So it couldn't just be a nice visual effect, it had to actually affect and change and enhance the gameplay of the game somehow. So I will talk about 2 of the games, the first of which is actually the only one that I think succeeded at the challenge. It's called The Depths to Which I Sink. It's by Big Pants Games. This is just a screenshot from the very first version that actually showed at Gamma. And if you can look at it without your glasses and then with, you'll see what I mean. It's like pretty much impossible to tell what is going on in this screen if you're not wearing the glasses. But once you put them on, you can absolutely see what the gameplay might be. And what you're doing in this game is you're that sort of worm-like creature, and you're going into and out of the screen and collecting things. And the reason why it accomplishes, I think the only one that accomplished the goal that we had set out, is because it removes every other cue we have for 3D perception, such as relative size and occlusion and parallax. And you can't really use any of those in this because it's all semi-transparent rectangles of various sizes that overlap. So that's why it's so amazing. And the other games were also really fun, but this one I think really met the challenge the best. And I have just a short video because the interesting thing is these games were made almost 3 years ago, but a few of them have actually since been further developed and released. And the depths to which I sink was just relaunched at Indiecade, which happened in Culver City a couple weeks back, and it won the audience prize. So I'm really excited for the Big Cat folks, and I want to show the video of the new version. So, of course, the next game I want to talk about and introduce is Super Hypercube, which is a collaborative development between Kokoromi, the collective that I was just mentioning that I'm part of, and Polytron Corporation, which is the indie game studio that Phil Fish and his development team, primarily consisting of the programmer Renaud Bédard, they started to produce Fez. And then during the idea of Gamma 3D, we came up with an idea for making a game that actually kind of cheats in a way because it is stereoscopic, but we also added an extra element to make it even more immersive, and that's head tracking. So at the time, this was 2008, we were really excited by Johnny Lee's Wiimote head tracking videos. You probably have all seen it, and it's really exciting because he was doing that here. And we decided we were going to find a way to integrate that into a stereoscopic game. So what you see is that we took the glasses, we had a pair of the plastic red cyan glasses, and just wired, like hot glued the infrared LEDs to the frames of the glasses themselves. And that allowed us to to combine the head tracking with the stereoscopic vision. So I'll just play a video of the end effect here. So this is at the Gamma event, so you can see it's kind of it's a one-night event, it's a party festival, a one-night festival. You can see in that screen that there's the Wiimote on the desk next to the laptop. Which in a night as long as that was a pretty big accomplishment. So yeah, that's the original version of Super Hypercube, and here's a screenshot from it. It worked really great. The only downside, of course, was that you had the battery pack and the wires coming off of your head, and And as a result, it was really more of a festival type experience. It wasn't something that most people could play, so it showed around at a lot of galleries and festivals. Like it showed last year here at the VIA Festival, the first one. And it was really great for those environments, but we really couldn't expect it to make it much farther beyond that, except for people that wanted to download the instructions and the code and just hack their own glasses and their own Wiimote together. So we liked it, but it just kind of had very limited distribution life. Of course, a few years later, I'm a little off screen, but I hope you can read all that. A few years later, the Kinect comes out, and the four of us started just sort of simultaneously realizing that the head tracking ability that we could use for that would just actually replace the Wiimote and be a lot more accessible, and we'd be able to reach a lot more people with the game. So we decided to go ahead and port it. So I basically just want to set up, the game's running, and if anybody wants to come play, we can just try out the game. Anyone? Yeah. I think actually what we'll have to do, I'm going to start calling names if nobody comes down here automatically. But it's going to be a little tricky because you have to be able to be in front of the Kinect and also see one of the two screens. But yeah, we can move the Kinect if we need to do that. It just occurred to me that we have to do that. Yeah? Just come on down. We'll get you set up. I really recommend playing it because I guess one of the points is stereoscopic vision is generally just an aesthetic addition to gameplay, and unless you want to do, especially with anaglyphic, unless you really reduce the kind of information in there, you can't really make it matter too much. But somehow adding the head tracking with the red cyan vision just really increases the immersion and the feeling of depth in the game, and the feeling of sort of being there and controlling it. And it's actually a very simple way to use a Kinect. We're not doing any really complicated detection with that. So we're using OpenNI for this, and it's developed in XNA 3.1. Okay, actually we probably won't need to speed up that high. We'll see. All right, seems pretty good. And here's your controller. So we are not using full body gestures or anything for controlling the game. It's really just the head tracking for that. You're going to need it for sure. And then what you do with the controller is you're rotating this cube. It's like a human Tetris. So you're trying to get this cube to go through the wall in front of you. And the rotation is on the D-pad or the analog, and then also on the shoulder buttons. So, and then if you want to quick drop the cube through the wall, you can just hit A. But right now, do the cactus, the familiar cactus. Do you know what this is? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Good to go. So just hit A. And this doesn't have audio right now. We actually developed it originally to not use any audio because it was played in these festival environments where there was live music, DJs and bands all the time. And so part of the rules of the Gamma Festival in general is that you can't have audio dependent in your game. So we just don't even have any at all at the moment. Yeah. It's a really good backseat watching game too. It's like so much torture to watch people and say turn left. Yeah. So yeah, we really wanted the whole effect. The combined effect of the head tracking and the 3D vision to really matter and make difference. And the way we do that is that as the game gets more and more challenging, more squares are added to the cluster. And as it gets bigger and bigger, you really have to lean very far or move very far around it to actually see the wall behind you, or behind it, to see what shape you need to rotate to. And it gets more and more crucial because as it gets larger, it also gets to the wall sooner. So, Well, the good news is you volunteered good first, so you're going to be an automatic high score. Well, all of it, yeah. And in this version, the cubes are, it's added one at a time to the cluster that exists, and they're added. It drops you back. Like they're added. The cubes are added to the cluster in like randomly at a random location. So sometimes you end up with two different solutions because one is the perfect solution and one is like another solution that also fits through the same profile. And then also because when it breaks, it adds cubes to what you had already. Sometimes you end up like you had a little bit earlier with like a cluster that is separated into two pieces. That's always pretty interesting when it grows bigger in two pieces. Oh, well, sorry, I already got my score.